boy, what a year in terms of politics 2016 was. From my perspective, as a political analyst, it was just incredible to observe votings like the Brexit, the US elections, or so many other across Europe, for example. In Austria, where I was coming from, we also had the presidential elections. And so many of those events were showing so unexpected results for so many people. So it's really the question, why are so many people so unsatisfied with the political status quo? And at some point, I was asking myself the same question. And no matter from what perspective I looked at it, in the end, for me, the answer was always because there is a lack of consciousness. So, what are the 4 levels of consciousness? The 4 levels of consciousness are, first of all, consciousness of political processes, like how politics actually works. The second are consciousness of content, and what are the topics. The third is consciousness of ourselves. Who are we actually? And the fourth is consciousness of others. It's about understanding other people's and their perspectives. So to me, it feels like we are really at a turning point. It's really about, are we just gonna blame others because it's not working for us? Are we just gonna protest unreflectedly? Or do we think it's maybe the time for a new political culture? And I want to start with a question. I'm curious about your opinion. What would you guys say in terms of politics, democracy, and votings? Do you think that the majority is always right? So, who of you guys thinks, yes, the majority is always right? Raise your hands. Okay. And who would say, no, the majority is not always right? What would you say? Okay, oh wow. That's quite a majority that just said that you guys don't think that the majority is always right. That's quite paradox, but let's just leave it for a moment. But maybe in that sense, what we can take away from that is that in politics, there is not always that one easy solution. So let's start with the first level of consciousness, which is consciousness about political processes. What we were just doing was a voting. And voting is basically the first thing that comes in our mind when we think about how we can contribute. But actually, there are so many other forms of participation. You could do like the more traditional way, just join a party or even found one. Or you could also start an initiative or a campaign. It really was never easier to start your own thing. If you want to reach people, you can do something over social media. If you feel like, wait, I don't have enough money, you can just start your own crowdfunding campaign. Or if you just want to do it a different way, you could also just engage in your local community. There are really so many forms of participation. And why does this all matter? It matters because politics is in a way like a marketplace. It's where our individual needs meet and where we, as a society, in the end, agree how we want to live together. And that's pretty significant. It's really important for all of us. And so let's move on to the second level of consciousness, which is consciousness of content and information. So let's have a look first at bubbles. For example, if you would have lived 100 years ago in one village, everybody in this village would have probably have had the same sources of information, maybe a newspaper or something. Or just decades ago, or even years, everybody was watching the same evening news programs. But nowadays, in times of social media, internet, algorithms, it's so different. Like, you basically just consumed information that is tailored for you or pre-filtered. You're just watching what you really want to see and blend out the others. So nowadays, you could basically be neighbors with somebody, but live in a different world. And even when it's a report about the same event, maybe you and your neighbor are just having totally different sources of information, and the same report about the same event, this information might have a totally different spin. And there are other phenomena it's like worth being aware of. For example, there is framing, which was coming up in the last couple of years, where it's really not about the hard facts anymore, but just about subconsciously activating thinking patterns. So it's not about the facts, but just like subconsciously activating those patterns. And this is also why we are talking about post-factual right now, where just the facts don't matter anymore. I mean, a little bit, but not that much as before. So at consciousness of ourselves, it's really about not being influenced by extrinsic inducements, but looking at yourself first and looking at your needs. Have a look at who you are and bring those needs to the political table and marketplace. And to getting there, it helps to have a clear and free mind. And in my experience, and what I can recommend to you, not only as a political analyst, but also as a yoga teacher, is to do meditation. This really supports to have a clearer mind, and that helps to really find out what are your beliefs and values, to have a neutral look on that. And as a side effect, meditation also helps you to stay balanced. So staying balanced also helps you to stay neutral, and staying neutral and rational makes you less emotional, because when you're emotional, you're just so much easier to pick up, because in the end, politics is also marketing. It's just about picking up the voters. And when you're emotional, you're just so much more easier to pick up and being influenced. So really take care that you know your needs, your beliefs, and your values, and take this as your foundation for yourself. And once you know those values for yourself, you can connect with others. Like, we're living in a connected society, and just talk to other people and look at what is their perspective on certain things. And here we are actually coming to a real key quality, especially in politics. And that's empathy. It's about understanding other people and where they are coming from. What is their reason why they have a certain perspective? There is always a reason why people have the view they have. And sometimes it's worth to have a closer look, and maybe you can even learn something, because there is always a reason. And now that we know all those 4 levels of consciousness, I want to invite you to apply conscious politics also for yourself and become more conscious political participants. And you can apply those, hopefully, also after today, but I also want to give you a hands-on example right now, what you could do. For example, if I would say, politics is an amazing place and exactly how I want it to be, what would you say for yourself? Do you agree? Are you not sure, or do you disagree? And especially if you're not sure or if you disagree, then think about the 4 levels. Think about your beliefs, values, and opinions. This is your foundation. Then connect with others, look at their perspective, and be empathetic. There is really never enough empathy. Then be aware of communication, information, and media, and how that works. And get your message out and participate. So thank you very much. And very lastly, I want you to keep in mind that politics, just like life, is always dynamic and changing. It's a process and not an end solution. So all we can do is to participate and be as conscious as possible.